Welcome to Undercurrents of Romance, the show that celebrates every subgenre of romantic fiction. In each episode, I peel back the layers of your favorite love stories and chat with the talented authors who bring them to life. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. Now, let's dive in with today's guest. Hello, romantics. I'm here with #1 New York Times bestselling author Christine Feehan to talk about her new paranormal romance and latest Carpathian novel, Dark Hope. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm I'm truly excited for you to be here. I mentioned this a little bit off the mic, but I wanted just to say that how much reading one of your Carpathian novels, I don't know, it's like snuggling beneath this cozy little blanket before a warm fire. It's just so familiar, but they're just so uniquely exciting too. And Dark Prince, as I mentioned, was my very first paranormal romance, and it had a really profound effect on my imagination as a young author. So I wanted to thank you for that. Thank you for giving us this series.
I
And
love writing. I always have stories in my head, and I have since I was a child. And there's usually more than one. So I'm constantly writing. I drive everybody crazy. And if I'm irritable, my kids would always say, "Mom, go write. Just go write."
get out of here, get it out of your system, then come back and be a normal human, right?
And my sister would say to me, she'd read something I wrote, and she'd be like, "You scare me, Christine. Whatever is going on in your head?"
We don't know, do we? We
No.
don't often know. Well, you had mentioned to me that Dark Hope, which is the book that we're going to talk about today, is your 100th published novel. So congratulations. So
Thank
exciting.
you. Thank you.
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
it is amazing. And when they told me that, I was pretty shocked that I was up to 100 published books. But that's what happens, see, when you get old.
Now, Dark Prince, that book was first published in 99. Was that your first published
That was
book?
my first published book, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So
And I
100
will
books
tell
since
you,
19.
I at the time had a lot of children at home, and I wasn't able to support them myself fully. And I needed to make more money. And a friend of mine said, "Send your books in." And I said, "Oh, they'd never take my books. First of all, they're not even doing vampires right now." And she's like, "No, just send it in." So I did, to show her that they wouldn't take my book, right? And most publishing houses wouldn't even read it because they weren't taking vampires, right? And then I get this call, which was totally unexpected. And this woman says to me, "I'm Alicia Condon from Dorchester Publishing, and we would very much like to purchase Dark Prince." And I hung up the phone.
Oh no.
I was like, "What? No, this
Oh
is
my,
supposed
did
to
it
happen."
scare you so much that you just
Yes.
thought it was an
I knew nothing
automatic?
about the business. I didn't
Oh my
even know
gosh.
about RWA. I had no knowledge of the business. And I was really sent it in just to shut my friend up, because certainly they weren't going to take a novel from me. And I could not believe it when she said they wanted it. And then I get another call back, and she's like, I believe we were disconnected." She was so
Oh my
sweet, you know?
gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
that is a great story. I, I can't even imagine what she must have been thinking, kind of like on the other side of the phone is
Oh,
like,
it
did,
got worse. I had
yeah.
put in there that I had two other books that were needed polish, but I had them available. And so she asked me to send them. And the second one was ended up being um, I call him my lobster boy. But it was Jacques' book. And the first line of it said, "There was blood, a river of it flowing." And I had started that book about 40 different times. And he was insane. He'd been buried in the ground without food, and anyway, all this stuff. And so I knew that in order for a reader to have any sympathy for him when he was crazy, they had to understand what had happened to him. And she says to me, so we'd really like you to change the first chapter of this book. And I said, well, I can't do that. So just toss it. And she's like, wait, what? And I said, well, did you read the third one? And she said, Dark Gold. Yes, I read it and it's good. And we'll talk about that one, but let's go back to the other book. And I said, yeah, I can't change that first chapter. The book won't work. I already know that. So, if you need it changed, you're just going to have to toss the book. And she goes, here at the publishing house, we don't toss books.
Gosh, Christine, that's great.
Oh, I was the bane of her life.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine telling somebody to toss my book. That is courageous. That just says a lot about you, and just you think, I'm sure in your mind you're like, "Oh, I'll just write another book,"
Yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that
I've got more in my
wow.
head. I'll just do it. Yeah.
So I think, if I did my research correctly, Dark Hope is the 31st, I'm sorry, 34th book in your Carpathian series. Does that sound about right
That
to
sounds
you?
about right. Yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Do you ever worry that you're going to run out of dark titles?
The titles, yes, those are actually hard to come by. I was surprised. Well, first of all, I didn't expect to write so many. I didn't expect them to be so popular. I love that world, but I have so many worlds in my head. Like
Yeah.
I probably am one of those crazy people that would have been locked up with voices in my head or something. I don't know. But yeah, and then so when people say, well, how can you keep coming up with couples? Well, if they live in this world and there's only 34 couples, that's not a lot in an entire world. So, I always have ideas for them, but the titles are difficult.
Hmm.
And I
Now, do
try to
you,
come up with something that works with the book itself.
right. Yeah. Now, so are you the one uh providing the title to your
Yes,
publisher, or
yes.
okay, all right. That's great.
Yeah, I always do that. It's interesting because, for years I wrote a certain way and my books were and my contracts were handled a certain way. Like I was never without a contract. If I was two books in and I had one more book to go, they were already negotiating for more. And I was pretty adamant that I wouldn't take more than three books on a contract or something I could write within a year. So in my mind, I always felt like I could walk away if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that people had to write synopsises and turn in I had no idea that they did. And then I met so many other authors and we're sitting around and they're telling me all these things they have to do and that all these people have input on their writing. That would make me crazy. I'd be like, wait,
You're
what?
probably thinking to yourself, should I tell them how it works for me, or should I just keep that to myself?
No, right? Yeah, it's interesting over the years. I've seen the publishing world change and often everything goes kind of like that.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to do that too. You have to be open to change. And I actually think it's a pretty exciting time right now because of independent publishing. Like I honestly think that if you're going to publish independently, you should turn in the best book you can, and
Mhm.
it shouldn't just be about money. But the fact that you can do that and you can get contracts for your foreign rights and you can
Mhm.
it's so it and there's small publishing houses now that are open. So there's in my mind so much more availability for an author. And that's a good thing because no one author can supply the world with books. We,
No.
I read voraciously, and I'm always looking for new authors to read, especially somebody who has quite a few books, so that I can just hit their backlist if I fall in love with them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're we're adding new readers every day, right?
Yeah.
So new readers that weren't with us yesterday are with us today, and so yeah, there's plenty of room in the pond or the lake or the ocean, however you want to put that. So
I think so.
absolutely.
I really do.
So for those who might be unfamiliar with Dark Hope, and it released, I believe it was that January 7th.
Yes, yes.
January 7th. So, for those who might not have come across it yet, can you tell us a little bit about the book and how it fits into the Carpathian world?
Well, each book is written as a standalone. So if you just pick that one up and you hadn't read anything before it, you should be able to enjoy the book.
And I can definitely say that's true. So, absolutely, as a reader.
So my books, they're fated uh, mates, and the premise is that the male lives thousands of years. He's not a vampire. He actually hunts they can turn vampire. And he has to find this woman. When he's born, his soul is split, and all the darkness goes into him, and all the lightness goes into her. And he will go thousands of years looking for her, for that one woman that can restore his soul. So they're fated to be together. They didn't realize for a long time that a human woman or somebody who has psychic abilities could be a life mate, and their entire species was becoming extinct because they had no women and they had no children. And then in Dark Prince, he finds that a human woman, and that gives all of them hope. And in this particular one, the challenge of writing a series where you're in that world and you have to abide by all those they have to say the same exact ritual words, is making it new and exciting and about each new couple. And in this one, he's an ancient, and I loved the way he was with her. She's a very independent woman, and she's a demon hunter, and he's pretty close to being a not so good guy, and she's willing to do him in if she has to, because that's her job.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of on the edge tension between these two at different times. And
Yeah.
then uh there was just this kind of dry humor about it. You know, he had this kind of dry humor about the whole situation, and obviously he's not going to back down. He understands. And I think she did too. Obviously,
Right.
she understood that this was going to happen at some time. But he knows everything. I mean, he has all the information, and so yeah, he was like, you can fight it all you want, honey, but we are going to
But
be together.
he was very
Uh,
respectful of her
yes, absolutely.
and her abilities. And he also, the fact that he went into negotiations with her, which was
Yes,
kind of funny,
yes,
because
yes.
she knew in the end, if she didn't accept this, he was still going to do it, find her to him. But she
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, then let's really talk about this, what I want. And are you okay with this?
And I thought you did a great job by making it feel as though he went into it faithfully to negotiate, even though he knew what
Yeah.
the outcome was going to be, that he did do it faithfully and he wanted her to be comfortable. And I thought that was just brilliant the way that you did that. So
Thank you.
congratulations
I
on
I
that.
really enjoyed this book. I really, all of my books have are problems, like mostly female. I have one series that I do males, but they're real life problems. I have two books coming out this year. One is called Deadly Storms. It's coming out in September, and it's a romantic suspense, and it deals with real PTSD.
Mhm.
And I mean, I research so carefully and I talk to primary sources. And my hope is that when people read that, they can get information for themselves, for a partner, or, whatever.
Yeah.
And then my Ghostwalker book, which comes out in May, deals with depression and thoughts of suicide,
Mm.
which
Mhm.
is very prevalent in our world. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
reading any, and so the idea is to deal with real situations in a world that's more fantasy,
Right.
if that makes
Right.
any sense.
No,
So
it does, and I love that about your books, that, there's depths and layers, and that's really it gets to the heart of what the show is, Undercurrents of Romance, and that's what I hope to talk to, each author that's on the show, is to find out what that undercurrent, what is that second beating heart of the story that's helping propel those characters towards their happily ever after, because it's a romance, right?
right,
And
exactly.
what would you say is that undercurrent for Dark Hope?
Hope.
Hope.
In a
Okay.
nutshell,
All
hope.
right.
It
Yeah.
was very interesting. My 12-year-old granddaughter had to read a book for class. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's a while back that she told me about it. And then she had to do a report on it. And they gave her 3 different topics that she could decide which one she
Mhm.
wanted to do. And she FaceTimed me and she's like, I want to read this to you. And the whole book was this tragedy. It was about a young girl whose mother died of cancer and the father was imprisoned. And she had to have an uncle raise her who was really quite good to her. And then another boy, his mother was here in the States with him, but the father ended up being deported. And so he didn't have his father. And she started comparing, she's like, you would think that just the loss, the death of the mother and the father being in jail was way more of a tragedy than what happened to this boy. But he essentially lost his father. And then she started talking about the good part of it was the hope that they both ended up having, which saved them. And I thought at 12 years old, for this child, who, by the way, is autistic, to
Mm.
understand that that's what a person needs, no matter how far down your life goes, you have to be able to find something that gives you hope. And I mean, there in Dark Hope, the world was coming apart, and they didn't have they didn't have a big army, they didn't have, all this stuff, but they did have hope. They had each
Mhm.
other and they had hope. And I absolutely believe in family, and it doesn't have to be blood family. It's
Mhm.
people that form together and make you stronger. And I believe in women power. Like I do. I think that when
Mhm.
women get together, they can move mountains. And
Mhm.
no matter how far away you are from some of your friends, when you need them, they're there. And that's the kind of thing that I try to put into the books, is there's always hope. And in this one in particular, I wanted that to resonate with people, that in our darkest hours, you can still find that light somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's a good time for the book to be out, because yeah, I think people doesn't matter what side of the scale you're on, but people are looking for that, and it was a great story, and it provided that inspiration and that good feeling, at the end. So yeah, no, I love that. Thank you.
That's why I
Um,
love romance, is because
yes.
I wrote a book, and this gentleman at a military, I have a lot of military readers, men. And he, at the end of this book, the heroine had left and he wouldn't turn the page. He wrote to me and he goes, this isn't fair. I can't stand it. And I finally said to him, honey, I write romance. Let's turn the page. It's guaranteed a happy ending.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, and if I remember the first romance that I read, not understanding, didn't even know about the HEA, and it was a Virginia Henley, and there was a time in there. It was The Raven and the Rose. I still remember it, and the hero, you think that the hero was killed. And I'm just like bawling. I mean, literally bawling. And I was like, oh, he has a
Yeah.
twin. Oh, okay. So yeah, yeah, that's the reason I have to be very careful about some books that I read or that's recommended to me because I don't want to feel bad at the end of the story. I just don't.
That,
That's not
no,
why I'm
we
reading,
have enough things in our lives that, and believe me, women are intelligent enough to know the difference between fantasy and reality.
Yes,
They really do.
absolutely.
A lot of people, for some reason, don't get that, but we're smart. We know the difference. And what I love about romance too is the hero and heroine are monogamous. They don't cheat on each other. They can have horrible things happen, but they're gonna, that they are committed to each other.
Hmm.
And all of us in our lives, we face sickness and any number of terrible things.
Hmm.
And you want to feel like you can count on that partner, that
Hmm.
no matter if you're feeling like the ugliest person in town, I mean, I remember one of my sisters had cancer. She had the most gorgeous hair. I actually wrote a book with this scene in it, and or one like it. And her hair came out for the second time, and she had beautiful red curly hair like mine. And I went up into the bathroom. She hadn't come out, and she was sitting on the floor crying, and her hair was everywhere.
Oh.
And pretty soon all my sisters joined us. I have 10 sisters. So there's 11 of us sitting in the bathroom, and we're all sitting around Mary, and we're crying. And the dogs, we all had dogs in the house, start howling because we're crying. And then my dad's like, "What the hell's going on up there, girls?" And all of us just instantly started laughing. Like, you know,
Yeah,
everybody has these things that
yeah,
happen in their lives. And we ended up going to a wig shop, and all of us trying on wigs and
yeah.
doing these crazy things.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, and it's about having moments like that where life can be really difficult, but it's your partner and it's your sisters and brothers, whether they're blood brothers or sisters or not,
Hmm.
that really get you through a
Yeah,
bad moment.
found
And
family, as they say.
and that's what happens
Yeah.
to, I think, in any type of romance book. I mean, it can be suspense. I have military. I have leopard shifters. You name it. I have it, and I love doing them. But through the whole thing, all of those things are underlying in them.
Hmm. Absolutely. And really, especially this is the way I feel about it. Even in your series, it's not only are they going to be there for them, it's to the death if
Yes.
absolutely necessary, which just, makes it even more amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I love that.
s-
But I love books. I love the written
yeah.
word. And I
Yeah.
love to find new authors who come up with a different take on any type of story. It's so great.
Hmm. Do you have a romance book that you've read lately that you could recommend to
You
readers?
know,
That
I have two suspense authors that it's my kind of go-to thing whenever I'm having a hard time. Karen Rose is a amazing suspense author, and
Mhm.
I read her quite a bit. But my absolute, I've been reading her for years and years and years, is Jane Ann Krentz.
Okay.
And she has so many
Mm.
different takes, from paranormal worlds to And she, to me,
Historical, yeah.
when I'm feeling kind of down, my historical Lisa Kleypas, I
Oh,
go to her.
Derek
I
Craven.
just,
Can we all just say Derek Craven right now?
I mean, she's just amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm always envious. I think, why can't I write like that? Why can't I write? And I cannot write a historical. I tried. I tried writing a Western. Oh my God, it was laughable. Like these people, these authors are amazing that they can do
Mm.
that.
Well, and but so, maybe Lisa Kleypas couldn't write a paranormal shifter series. You know what I mean? It's like everybody has their
Everybody does, but I
yeah.
would be surprised if she couldn't.
Well, I would be surprised too. I just used that as an example, but
Right.
yeah, yeah. So, well,
Well, I always find it interesting because to me, we're all writers. We all love books. We all
mhm,
love to read. And when people will meet me and other writers and they're like not able to talk to me, in my mind, we're equals. Like you write books, I write books, we sit down in a chair, it takes
yeah.
discipline. We're doing the exact same thing. And maybe I got a little luckier and I hit it at right the exact time. But that doesn't lessen what anyone else in our industry does, whether they're published traditionally or independently or
Mhm,
however it's done. They're it's just writers, I respect them all, every
mhm,
single one, for whatever
yeah.
type of writing they do.
That's amazing. I mean, it's wonderful that you're able to, with the success that you've had, that you can um, feel that way about even, new debut authors where you're just so welcoming and embracing, and because sometimes success does different things to people, and so that's great that you embrace not just that traditional path, that you also embrace that indie path that some authors choose to go down. That's great.
Well, I'm actually very admiring of them because I got to tell you, I'm lazy. I don't want to learn new things. I don't. I'm like, I love to write. Leave me alone. Let me write. Don't make me do any of the rest of that stuff. And these independents, my God, they have to learn so much just to get their freaking book out there. And I'm
Yeah.
like, really? Do I want to do that? Probably not, because
Yeah.
I'm too lazy.
Well, I don't think that probably anybody would call you lazy. I've seen some interviews of yours. I know how hard you work. I know what long days you have at the typewriter, or not the typewriter, but at the keyboard. So I don't think that anybody could put
Well,
that term to you.
you have children, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
have children.
yeah.
Well, I will tell you, children and grandchildren keep you grounded, like totally grounded. The first letter I ever got when I had with Dark Prince, and in those days it wasn't email, it was an actual letter. I opened it up and I went running into the living room and said to my son, honey, she says I'm a goddess. And he looks up, Mom, you'd be a goddess
Really.
if you did the laundry once in a while. Like that was what he said to me. And so when
I love
he
kids.
said
They
to me
just
very recently that I was a legend because my 100th book, and that immediately popped into my mind. And I thought, I'm no legend to my kids.
no,
Like,
never to the kids, never to the kids.
no, they
That's
keep
all
it
right. You
very
have
real.
hundreds of thousands of admiring readers who believe that of you. So no worries about a few kids.
Well, I'm just
Um,
saying it can keep you really humble.
yes, absolutely. Well, I want to be very respectful of your time here. So before we go, Christine, can you tell us maybe what's up next for you? I think you'd mentioned you've got a couple of releases
I
coming out
do.
here
I
soon.
have Thunder Game comes out in May, and I'm very excited about that book. I got tremendous feedback from my editors and agents when they read it. And that made me very happy because that was a book that I put my heart and
Yeah.
soul into. But my favorite, absolute favorite, is Deadly Storms. And it was delayed coming out by over a year. And I really wanted it to be as good as I could make it. And because I felt like I didn't want to do a disservice to anyone who had PTSD. I wanted
Mhm.
to really make it right. And that book will be coming out in September finally.
Oh,
So I'm very
oh,
excited about it.
maybe we can get you back on the show and talk about that book. That would be wonderful.
I would love that. I would love
Oh,
that.
great.
And it will give me a chance to get your books read.
Oh, that's
I
that's
always do. I always get the
even
books and then it's too soon before the interview to get it all done. And then I get upset with myself. I didn't get that book read.
well, even the thought of Christine Feehan reading my books has just made my day. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
It's
Uh,
been a lot of fun.
uh, where is the best place for readers to connect with you online?
I have two major spots. One is my website. I have a community in my website, and we have book discussions and all kinds of things there. So you can sign up. You have to sign up to go into it's free, but I have people sign up to protect them from spammers or anything like that.
Yeah.
And there's, about 150,000, 160,000 people in there, and they really do get into these book discussions, which is quite fun. And then the other place is I have a course on Facebook. That's where I do my live things.
Hmm.
And I have an Instagram
Okay.
that I occasionally put things up. I am the worst social media person in the world.
It's tough to do it all for sure, but no, your Facebook live events. I've been watching those, and you do such a wonderful job with
Oh
connecting
my
with your
gosh,
readers.
something always
You
goes
do.
wrong.
Oh,
Always.
but that makes you more accessible, right? It's like, oh, it's not perfect.
Just,
It's just
just when
life, right?
I'm talking away, and all of a sudden I'm hearing, and I look over and my dog is doing this horrible breathing that sounds like you know what. And
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
So sorry. Let me mute this for a second. Well, pets and videos that's perfect, and everybody loves that. That's not a problem. Well, Dark Hope, as I think I mentioned earlier, released on January 7th, so everybody be sure and order your copy today. Christine, thank you so much for joining me, and many thanks to everyone listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Undercurrents of Romance. You can find more information about the show at tracydevlyn.com/podcast. Undercurrents of Romance is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. I'll be back soon with another great romantic read. Enjoy the adventure, everyone. Bye.
Bye.